delicious.
It's so hot but so flavourful.
Trying to catch the
All
flavours.
dancing around in there.
Loved it.
Those are
You should have a bit of the spice, a bit of the saltiness, a bit of the sweetness.
Oh my god.
Definitely the sweetness.
Yeah.
This part's really nice.
You have it?
It's a lot different from what I'm used to.
Yeah, what?
understand
I'm
it,
trying to get the
because
flavours with the in the lamb. There's something specific in there that I'm tasting now.
You'd have a lot of what we
Cumin.
would-
Yeah,
you'd
cumin's
have
a big
one. Cumin,
Indian.
that's it.
So you've
Garam
got cumin,
masala
you've got
maybe.
turmeric, garlic, onions.
Coriander.
Yeah, coriander and cumin. There we go.
So
That's
what's
the main two.
Yeah.
so what's the reason for that mixing the banana? Is it because that banana's common in Somalia? Is that why, or why would you mix it with? Because that, from I've always understood, you know, that's something like let's say fruit. You have it as breakfast, or you have it as after you don't like have it as part of, except for maybe with a salad or something. So like, is there that particular reason why, or it's just
Personally,
what it
I
is?
don't know of any particular reason why it's been like that. But if we look back at where Somali started, we were originally nomads. Nomads are known for traveling, and if you're traveling, you haven't got those luxurious moments, and they're livestock people, so they're always running around after the animals, trying to get them fed, rein them back in, all that. So if you're living in that lifestyle, you're gonna need to get all of your vitamins in certain meals, because you're not gonna have the luxury of, let me chop up a banana, you know?
moving?
Yeah.
Bananas are easy to move as well because they've got that protective casing. This is probably that. And then also you can pick them and then wait for them to ripen.
Yeah, so you take it away with you
Yeah.
for weeks on end, and you've picked up green ones by the time you're on your way back.
Then
They're
it sort of
juicy and
ripens
yellow.
up.
Yeah,
And you think about potassium
exactly.
and the energy for the lifestyle.
Coming to think of it, all these sort of cultural things that we all bring with us have their reasons.
Absolutely.
If you think about people being, for instance, the nomads that we just talked about, and they're not sitting in some 3-point something house, they're going to need the iron, they're going to need the potassium, they're going to need the vitamin A. And they've managed to find things that those things are in that they can then continue to take with them. And for something like that, it's in the livestock. So you're herding livestock.
Oh my
That's
god,
your
no
life.
one had
So
salad.
therefore you've
There's
got
loads
that.
of salad.
Plantain's banana, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we eat that with
Yeah. Planting. Yeah.
Plantain? Plantain or plantain?
We call it plantain. Plantain.
Plantain.
Plantain. That's what we do.
That's the correct, yeah.
Is it right?
no,
I
yeah,
think plantain is a great
Nigerians call it dodo.
Huh?
Dodo.
Planting.
Yeah.
Call it
What's
dodo.
another name for it?
See, okay, I'm letting them.
Different cultures, yeah.
Was it called doodoo?
Dodo.
Dodo.
I'm trying to say it in an accent. Like.
Serious? I thought they say that plantain.
No, dodo. I call it dodo.
Okay.
Yeah,
This particular
our
dish
equivalent.
that we've got here is called soqar, and it's
What's
one of
it?
those
Soqar?
soqar, yeah. It essentially just means chopped up meat, right? Or meat cubes. But it's a dish that is so versatile. It would be for breakfast, so you would have something like this for breakfast. You'd have the meat, the potatoes, all of that with the flatbread, and you'd have that as a breakfast. You could also have it as a lunch, and you could have it as a dinner, yeah. But the main star of this dish would be the soqar.
Is there like much sweet stuff in your dishes? So like when I say, so like, you know when, let's say UK, whatever, you know, like everything's cake, chocolate, biscuit, they're just, and I'll be honest, I think sometimes I'm thinking like I know I do it too much sometimes, I'm being honest. Do you have that as well? And I'm talking about more traditional dishes. Is it like a lot of sweet dishes, or is it just more just savoury type of things?
We have like our own like sweets and stuff, and I think one thing that transcends amongst like all cultures is the urge to have something sweet after you eat your food. Do you know what I mean? And we have like I said like halwa, which is how would you describe it? Like it's kind of like a jelly,
Turkish delight.
Yeah.
but it's not jelly.
It's like a cardamom Turkish delight almost.
Cardamom.
Turkish delight, yeah. So
But
it's sort of the same
beautiful.
flavour.
But it's beautiful.
So
it's
nice.
so nice.
Enough to chew.
Yeah.
Like you could still
So like
bite
it's still
into
squares.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
And it's all like it's almost got like a jelly-ish consistency, but it's very thick.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
solid. So
Yeah.
it's not like
It's not-
wobbly jelly.
Cardamom.
It's got like a cardamom
Yeah, it's got cardamom
flavour.
in it. It's very sweet, but it is the best
so
thing
good,
ever.
man. So good.
Very unhealthy though.
So
but
bad for you, but so good.
It's literally sugar, fat, and spices
Yeah.
I've seen them
cooked
making
together and then
it.
molded.
Yeah.
I think when
But it
comes
is
to-
so nice.
First topic I thought we could mention or start off with the word Hoyo representing mum. It is one of the most beautiful words in the Somali culture. It's absolutely stunning. It's simple for everyone else to say as well, which is really nice. The word Hoyo is being used in music now. It's being used in different cultural videos and things like that. I've seen it all over TikTok as well. And there's a brand called Hoyo that's doing Hoyo t-shirts. Now, I think everyone can say Hoyo, which is really sweet. But then Hoyo is mum. But I feel like when you say it in the translation, it gets lost in the translation. I feel like it doesn't have the same depth as when you say Hoyo.
Yeah. I feel like Hoyo is probably the Somali word that I say the most out of every other word. Because me and my mum speak English together. We speak Somali together. But I would never think to call my mum.
Yeah.
Like, I would never call my mum.
Does it
I would
just
address-
not sit right?
Yeah, I would say to other people, oh, my mum. But when I'm talking to my mum, I would never be like, oh, mum. Like, it just doesn't hit the same as saying, oh, Hoyo.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
I feel you.
On that one though, I genuinely think, like, as you were saying about how Hoya has more like resonance, the translation kind of loses something. I fully agree with you, because I feel like when you say Hoya, you're not just saying mum, you're speaking of mum in Somali culture,
Yeah.
and the reverence that we have for our parents, the fact that we do anything for them, kind of thing. Like, mum just doesn't cover it for me, because
Yeah.
anyone can be a mum, but like a Hoya.
And culturally,
Yeah.
we're taught to like almost, I don't know, see our mums as a massive regard. And I think all mums deserve that, don't get me wrong. But I think with our culture, mums have always been the central of every being. Like they're the central of the home, they're the central of the kids, they're the central of the man. Like even when it comes to marriage, people talk about, a woman in the household is sort of like, she leads with the man, and at the top he's got that name, like, I'm the man, I'm the leader. But then Hoyo is where everyone comes to.
like close knit. It's very community, very strong and heavily based on the culture. Like you obviously you find people that stray away from the culture, but you don't find many people that do. Like Somali people tend to, even if they're westernized or they've lived in another country, they always have that culture. And obviously we call it Somali, like we always have that. No matter, as I said, we're all very different, but we all have that at the core.
Yeah.
We might have different beliefs in terms of other things, but when it comes down to the actual core of it, we all have that instilled in us, and it is very much a Somali thing to be we're very proud people. We're very proud people in terms of our culture, where we come from, our language. And I feel like, speaking from my perspective, it's all quite different in age. When I was younger, it wasn't cool to be Somali. I feel like we were very slept on when we were younger. Like, it was almost kind of like a bad thing to be Somali when I was in school. Like, oh, you're Somali. Like, oh, you got a big forehead. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you eat banana and rice. Like, it was kind of like frowned upon to be Somali when I was younger, but it never made me not want to be Somali. I was still like, I'm Somali, I'm what? Do you know what I mean? Like, it never made me feel like, oh, actually, maybe I don't want to be Somali, or maybe it is a bad thing to be Somali. Like, I never thought it, despite what I was surrounded by. However, now fast forward to today, it's the in thing to be Somali.
It is trendy.
Everyone loves Somali
really
girls. They love the language. Like,
the
now
food,
the food,
the clothes,
the
everywhere.
the things that people thought was weird that I used to eat when I was younger, now it's like, it's cool. And I'm like, told you. Do you know what I mean?
It took me
Told
this
you.
long to notice.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I believed in the Somali sauce from time ago, but people were taking it in now, and I guess it's better than nothing.
What about you, Kosa?
So, I'm gonna give a bit of a nerdy response, but I think to be Somali in the UK is integrating without assimilating. Like, you never lose yourself. You join in, you participate, but you always like come with your Somali nimmer first, and then everything follows that. And I've seen it. Like, we've all basically had the same upbringing. We've all been to the same community centres. We've all been to the same events. We've all like talked the same language. And even those of us who maybe, like myself, aren't the best in Somali language will still understand it perfectly. And I think that, like, no matter what happens in life, you've always got a community to fall back on. No matter where you go in the world, there is always like a distinct Somali community that they've just carved out of nowhere and nothing. So Minnesota's a good like Cardiff.
Yeah,
Just
they're
everywhere.
huge, aren't they, over
Yeah,
there? And they're
very-
very proud as well.
They're very different from like the people around them. So there's not that sense of I'm going to join in. It's one of the things I absolutely love about being Somali is like you can walk down the street and someone will know who your dad is, who your mum is, who your
that's the
great
one thing
granddad
I hate.
is.
I can't lie.
No, but
That's
it's
one thing I hate.
interesting, isn't it? Like people picked up on like this in the kind of the Mo Farah documentary on the BBC that he just walked into a cafe and they knew who he was, kind of thing, like who he really was. Like Somalia and the Somali culture is the most homogenous in Africa, they say. Like everyone knows everyone. Everyone can pinpoint somebody in the yellow pages of like the Somali mind. And for that reason, it works in a community where based on a last name, you can tell that this person is based in this particular region and he owns this many camels and he's part of this tribe. It doesn't necessarily work in societies where there's a bit more disintegration, where there isn't that kind of cultural...
Also, I would say as well, like the whole closeness with Somali community. Like you'll be out and then you'll see like a Somali person. You don't know them from Adam. You literally don't know them anywhere. And then they'll be like, you Somali? I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay, whatever you need. If you want this, if you want a drink, if you want the food, just let me know. I got you. If you need to get home, like you don't know them from anywhere, but because you're Somali,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I think even our boys
That's amazing.
are sort of taught to protect females as well and protect Somali females. So wherever you are in the world, a Somali boy or male would really look out for you. Even if he's never met you in his life, to him, you're a Somali sister.
Even
that
the
could be
girls.
my mom, that could be my sisters. They're sort of...
Even the girls are like that. Like you'll be out and you'll be, oh, you Somali? Oh my God, me too. And then we're friends.
Do you know what?
It's
Saying that, yeah.
crazy.
I grew up here in the early 90s. So I was a little girl running around in pigtails in the early 90s, right? And having things like what you've just mentioned was the end of all. We used to bring strangers to our parents' house. Like we would look around the road, like the streets, would go out or whatever. We'd see one Somali person, we're running after them. Auntie, where do you live? What's your name? Do you have children? Do you want to come to our house? And we would just, regardless of where in Somalia they come from, we would just bring strangers to our house and would be like, Mom, guess who I found? I found this Somali lady. And then they'd get together and they're having tea. It was amazing because we literally felt like we were the only people. I went to school in Harlesden, by the way. I went to primary school in Harlesden. And being in Harlesden, although I was well within my black community, I always stood out. I was always different. I won't say picked on, but I was always questioned for my looks. You've got big curly hair. You've got this long straight nose. Like, you're not. And it's almost like I had to fight and go, hold on, I'm one of you. Wait, I'm one of you. Do you know what I mean? So saying what you just said, being Somali was so important. We had to literally find each other and bring each other into communities. And if there was anything that one of the older people needed help with, like filling out forms or finding where to get some sort of information, they would literally knock on each other's doors and ask each other, how did you fill out that form? And how did you do this? And no matter where in Somalia you came from, you were always close. There are some words, I think, in the Somali culture that are now becoming so much more mainstream. Words like wallahi, naya, which isn't a word that I'm a fan of, but it's everywhere. Are there anything that sort of
The food is cropping up a lot.
Yeah.
Like I'm hearing a lot about baris. I'm hearing a lot about hilab, especially in like music, which is something that I never ever thought I'd come across in my life. If you said that to a 5-year-old Colstead, like, oh, someone's going to do a beat and they're like going to talk about baris and hilab, you would be like, no, never. But no, it's really interesting how much like the words are starting to flow into popular culture.
I think what makes it stand out is the banana.
Yeah.
Having banana with rice. I think that's what's catching everyone else off guard, because they're like, how do you do lamb, shank, rice, salad, chili, and then a banana? Like,
But it
it's a
tastes
sweet-
so nice.
I know,
though.
because
But
everyone
banana's
that
like a
tastes it
cucumber.
is like,
It's like a
actually,
cucumber
this
having a
works.
cucumber
You
on
know
the
what?
side.
I've had this conversation with so many people. They're like, oh, you eat banana with your rice. And I'm like, don't knock it till you try it. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, everyone that's then tried it, they're like, hey, you know, onto something. You know, that actually is nice. Back to what you said about like the words that are now being used in just like common slang or whatever. I like the fact that our words are being incorporated into it, but I feel like it's a lot of derogatory words that are being used. So like when you hear in like music, they're talking about like, oh, habsi, which means prison, unto, which means food, but not food that you eat, as in drugs. Do you know what I mean? So it's nice that our words are being used and incorporated into like modern day colloquial language.
Yeah.
But why has it got to be the derogatory words though?
But
know
with
what I
every
mean?
language, you always pick up the bad words first.
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
guess. Yeah.
I think that's something we all know. Every language you're trying to pick up is always the bad words.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah, I get it, but we got nice words too, you know.
Once you lose your language, you started to lose everything else. You know, and I think that's something that's happening to us now as Somalis, because I see a lot of under 25-year-olds are just like, I understand it, or I don't speak it very well, or what did you say? And it's like, okay, if that's how you are, and you're say 25, and you're supposed to be reproducing, what are you going to teach your child? Because if Raisa, for instance, has a baby now, baby Raisa don't know nothing about those Somalis.
Yes, she does.
British language.
Yes, she does.
I'm joking. But yeah.
And I think a way that the older generation used to combat that was making sure all children go back home. So summer holidays used to be trips back home. And with almost everyone that's over that age of sort of 22, 23 has experienced going back home at some point. It was the known thing. Summer holidays, we're going back. And over there, you're drinking the camel milk, you're running after livestock, you're learning lifelong skills as well as language, culture, all sorts.
If you're like, they see you're doing bad here, like, and they don't want you to end up in a bad place, whether that is in prison or potentially getting killed or dying or whatever, they'll say, oh yeah, we're going to go on holiday, they'll take you there.
You're never coming back.
Then they'll come back with your passport.
Yeah.
So you can't leave there until they're ready and they think you can come back. I feel like in the Somali culture, the sons are babied a lot. When it comes to the girls, we have to grow up quick. We need to be helping in the kitchen by a certain age. We need to be looking after any other siblings by a certain age. We have a certain expectation of us from very young, whereas the guys essentially
Are
enabled. They get away with murder.
Completely.
Like, and then when their parents, when the sons are now in gangs or whatever, the parents are like, oh, I don't know where I went wrong. I gave him everything he wanted. He had a roof over his head. He had food. But you never corrected his wrongs. You always, as you said, you enabled him. So, and I can say this from personal experience. Like, my brother's not in a gang or anything, but the things that I would get in trouble for, he wouldn't even get looked twice at. He wouldn't even get...
It's a case of, oh, he's a boy.
He's a boy.
Exactly.
You know what boys are like.
5 o'clock is home time, and if he's not there, it's like, oh, he's a boy. He's probably going to be here in a minute.
Yeah.
Like, if you're there at 5:05, your mom's standing outside
Yeah.
with a shoe, like.
So I feel like where the boys are babied for so long, they're not dumb. They realise after a while they can get away with it.
Yeah.
But then this, come on. Like,
So they get...
males and females are very different.
Yeah,
That's what it's
of
about.
course they are.
Out at 5 a.m. You can get raped.
Of course.
But
I can hold his own.
I do think it's like more than that.
Get killed, but he can hold his own.
It's also about like labour. So literally
Yeah.
from because I'm one of 4, and I've only got one brother and 3 siblings, like 3 sisters. And since literally I can remember, it was me and my sister have to clean, have to cook. My brother can like play games. He can but I'm so pleased that my parents at some point made a decision to correct that, because my brother is now like, I'm really proud of him. He's not involved in gangs or whatever. But there was very much like an experience of, if we went to a family member's house, he would be feet up, me and my sister straight in the kitchen. And that kind of experience really gets to you. And one of the things that I realised later on in life, because I worked in criminal justice as well, I worked in criminal defence for like 4 years, and like to this day it still makes me really upset, but there is a disproportionate number of Somali men in our prison system. Absolutely. And we can't even figure out the numbers because they're not recorded as Somali unless they're foreign-born nationals. So those of us who are born here, we don't even know how many of us are in prison. But I also realised like women take on like a saviour kind of like protective kind of element. So I went into that line of work because I wanted to like help the Somali boys who are in those situations. And like, it just kind of all makes me realise that it's all like linked.
Well, in terms of numbers, when I was doing my masters, I think immigrants make up about 5%, maybe 6% now of the population in this country, and black boys make up about 49% in some prisons. So from about 39 to 40% of the prison population, nearly half of the population. So if you take out out of that 5%, take out women, children, all the law-abiding citizens and the good kids, there's a small portion of black males, and then you break that down into West Indians, Africans, Somali, in terms of that very overrepresented.
Back home, coming back to tying this into the Somali culture, back home we had a lot more like we said, a village to raise a child, and so you'd walk down the road, and if you weren't at school at the time where everybody else is supposed to be, the shopkeeper that doesn't even know you would be clipping your ear, like, what are you doing here? You know, so it took that entire village of people to put children on the correct path. Where now we're so displaced and so far from family members, and you know, myself, if I speak of me, I live in Chiswick, which is predominantly, you know, let's just say not my colour, right? So my son now is going to a school, or will be going to a school where he will stand out, and it's going to bring its own difficulties. But then I'm not close enough to my family members for him to have that interaction with other people. You know, so that takes a village thing is now non-existent.
I definitely think that there's just similarities between the two cultures. Remember, the same things like when the Yardis was coming, I want to just make it all sound negative, because even like other things as well, but when the Yardis start coming over, they weren't joking either. Now how they talk about certain aspects of, you know, with the Somali, again, we're not promoting that part, we're just, but it's like some people are fearful. Like, when I talk to certain users, like, the Somali, they're scared.
Yeah.
North Wales, there's certain areas where.
So even like
the
Malis, yeah.
What you would think is unheard of.
So for me personally, I'm from Camden, and that's got a very big Somali community in Camden. And just off of what I said earlier, where it's like we have like very much like a community thing, and even it wasn't cool to be Somali back in the day. You was kind of teased for being Somali back in the day. I think, and I'm talking about the people that are like my age or maybe a few years below or over that are in gangs. I feel like it stemmed from having a point to prove as well, because it wasn't cool being Somali, and because the Somalis tend to stick together, naturally that then maybe creates a gang. But now they've got something to prove, because you got a problem with Malis, you're always cussing Malis, now we're going to show you what Malis are about, and then it creates that whole divide. And we already as Somali people have that mentality of sticking together and being with our people and being a close-knit community. Then you add aggression and violence into the mix, it turns into a gang. Do you know what I mean? And then you bring money into it.
Also, with the formation of gangs, just generally, like you see that when there's a wave of migration shortly afterwards, as a result of like pressure from the state, from the police, from other agencies, people start to like form like informal networks, and they're called gangs by like those in power who don't like them. But actually, sometimes these people are doing things in the background and for their communities, often funded by quite like questionable business ventures, but ultimately they are doing something in the background that the state doesn't really like, which is why they're just classed as gangs.
Those girls that did in the olden days marry outside of the race went through a lot.
Yeah.
They would be disowned, they would be pushed aside, their children would be pushed aside. And I think till today, a lot of girls have those complexes, because when you go back home and you've got a kid who's, let's just say, mixed, half Irish, half Somali, and you're going back home to take that child with you, one, they look different. The look we can get over because Somalis are so vastly shaded, right?
Yeah, that's what
So, language ain't there. Culture ain't there. There is nothing of them. And then we Somalis believe that the child takes on the father's name as well. So if I've married you, for instance, my children would have no Somali heritage in terms of names.
And the name is
where
huge.
Where would I find your name from 100 years ago? How would I know who your ancestors are? I mean, every one of us will know our ancestry names. We'll be able to count them. Every child is taught that.
We can go back through generations.
Generations after generations. My aunties will probably get up to hundreds. You know, I can probably get up to about 30, you know, so we're taught that. So
it's like the National
Archives.
Yeah. It's like the National Archives, in the same way that you have a codified system in this country of like, this is the birth certificate of your great-granddad. We have an oral system whereby it follows the father's line. So Kausar, Mahmoud, Asman, Fadl, Ismail, Fahia, Samakab, Galan, Hagir, Bela, Al-Magan, Ali. I'm going to stop there, but there's so much more. It goes on. And those are all like my paternal line going all the way back. Like hundreds of years.
We can pinpoint exactly where her family started.
Exactly. Like where we're from, where our camels graze. That's the yellow pages I was talking about.
So then that interracial marriage now brings a problem, because you're bringing a break to that now. You know, whichever party it is, you're bringing, and especially even worse when it's the female marrying outside.
Because they lose the paternal line.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know a couple of girls that are sort of similar ages to me that are married outside of the race, and God bless their marriages, but a lot of them are still married and have stayed married, and I think it's beautiful, and I don't have prejudice against anyone. But those same girls, when we have chats like this, will say things like, I'm never going back home with my kids. I'm never going to take them. They'll never be accepted. They'll always be the outsider. They'll always be frowned upon. And I just think part of me wants to go, well, you brought it onto yourself. You know?
Yeah.
But the other part is also sympathetic to the fact that actually she's just fallen in love with someone who isn't from her culture.
Do you know what's like really sad about it though? Depending on like whether or not your mum or dad is Somali in the biracial relationship, that's dependent on how much you're incorporated into the community.
100%.
Because if your mum's the one that's married out, you've lost your paternal line, you've got no like up to the simo, you've got no way of tracing yourself back. So, and that's a huge part of what it is to be Somali.
On the other side, I always find, and I know quite a few, I always find when the female is Somali, the children pick up the Somali culture.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, so they're more Somali culturally, but then they lack the background.
Yeah.
A good example is like Maya Jamat. She would have an up to Simo in the same way that we all would.
She would have a
Like-
lineage line.
Like a paternal line going back in
Because her
Somali.
dad's the one that's Somali.
But then if her
Okay.
mum was Somali, she would probably be more culturally Somali, but she wouldn't have the paternal line.
Oh, she's mixed.
Yeah,
she's Somali and
she's half
Swedish.
Somali, yeah.
Yeah.
But I, like that's an example that I use mainly
Funny
because there
thing is,
aren't
when
many.
She became famous, you know, there are, because everyone's like sort of, everyone knows everyone, right? So as soon as everyone started seeing her, they were like, oh, what's her name? And you could just give them like Maya, Jama, so and so. That's it, just 3 names.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they're that family that travelled here from that time.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you people know this? You know? And so there are families out there who know her dad, her granddads, her cousins, everybody, and will tell you, oh, she's so and so and so and so. Simply by giving 3.
And this leads back to I think one of the first things I said in this conversation, that Somali people are very proud people. We take a lot of pride in where we come from and who we are and our families and all of that kind of stuff.
You have a Somali girl on your line, don't you?
No, I'm a married man.
Do you know what I've wanted to talk about? Like, what is it, Barambur?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
some of this culture part of the wedding stuff that we just don't know.
Do you know, I wanted to say earlier, I think with the keeping cultures alive, I think, as I said earlier, language is first and foremost. But to keep language alive, you need to keep music alive. And I think music and poetry plays a massive part in the Somali culture. It is one of the biggest things. I mean, we're known to be the greatest poets, if you know what I mean. Like, we've been poets ever since the start of the time.
So what's a poet that we should be looking? Give us
Oh, actually, one of the best ones died yesterday.
died very recently. It's really
was it yesterday or day before?
day before, I think. It's very upsetting.
Hadrawi.
Just for context, if you go to the British Museum, there is a single like shelf dedicated to Somalis, and his poem is like on that shelf. That's how kind of important he was in the context of like Somali poetry.
So with the weddings, we do have the poetry, which is incorporated in the Brambur. So the Brambur is essentially a dance that is done in front of the female and everyone else. I think Kosa will demonstrate that.
No, I'm not gonna. But like, imagine like someone ululating, like I can't do it, and then like a bunch of people just like slamming,
Clapping to the beat.
clapping to the beat, and then jumping, and the jumping is a huge part of it, and they're all jumping in sync, and then like it's so good. I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
And they dance as well.
They dance as well. They spin
it's working,
around. They spin around each other. I love it so much.
So there's a lot of dances that go off that are very culturally, that have been there a lot longer. So the music aspect has not been the easiest perceived when it comes to, because our culture is very much influenced by our religion. So the music aspect has always been a little bit of, let's just try and stay away from that. But with the Brambur, it's very much a drum, and drums are allowed.
Okay, so that's how you
So
get
it's
around.
a drum, it's a beat, and the words that they're saying to those beats are talking about, poetically talking about the female's family and the male's family. And a lot of the things that I could even try and translate to you guys would be lost in translation, but it's in a very poetic way, talking about how important his family is and how great his family is, as well as hers, and their matrimony and the fact that they're coming together. No. YouTube
That's
does.
why they say it's good to marry a Somali.
Yeah.
You know, like with the wedding, when they're going back to back about tribes and stuff like that.
Oh,
Imagine you marrying a
This is what we were talking about when we met. That's where I remember
If
the
you marry a
conversation when we
non-Somali at
met
the
last
wedding,
week.
you
Yeah.
can't big them up. What are they going to say?
So
It's like, what are the...
Ghana.
can I just tip
Here we
in?
go.
Sabrina
Poetic
Nora's
woman.
husband. when they did her wedding, they did the burambur, which is the cultural dance for them. And then they were trying to talk about Idris Elba, which they don't have a lineage for, they don't have anything for, and they're like, Idris Elba, our new son-in-law. And they had nothing poetically to add to it.
Look, I found an example.
But
Also,
Hers,
he's
like-
something like, if he's a big fan, it's like,
Yeah.
they came from the hills and
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all like the family history and like the
How
kind
many
of
daughters
ancestral
they had,
folk. Yeah.
what they created.
And then this is like some of the dancing. Sorry, I don't know if you
Yeah.
can see that. Okay, no, sorry.
Tempted to marry Somali now.
It's broken, guys. I'm so sorry. But like, look it up. It's probably my favourite form of dance.
Yeah. So there are traditional dances as well, isn't there? So we've got the Nika, which is southern Somalia.
Yeah, it's very like
It's
hip
very-
heavy.
It's like a Tanzanian dance. It's just twerk.
It's basically twerking, yeah.
But, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But it's like more of
Essentially.
a than a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's it going?
Hips, less bum, more hips. I
Yeah.
understand.
No, more bum, less hips.
I
It's
was
the
gonna
bum that
say.
has to sort of.
It's
Yeah.
like one.
Okay.
But yeah, inside the bum doesn't necessarily move. It's more like I can't do it. I'm not even gonna try, guys. It's just like
So southern Somalia would have that as a really big cultural dance, and then we've got what's been hitting. I don't know if you guys have seen the new wedding videos and stuff, and younger generations are now trying to implement that in their dance, their wedding dance. So they've got people that friends and family who have been learning chander or call it. It's a dance called the chander, and it's very much like a folklore dance. So you've got the men's facing the women, and then they swap over and stuff like that, and it's called chander. It's very, very cultural. And you've got younger generations now which are practicing things like that before their friend's wedding to perform that at the wedding, which is absolutely beautiful. I think it's stunning.
Quick question.
Yeah.
If you can hit 30 seconds. If I was walking into Somali home celebration and I didn't know anything, what would I see? What would it look like for me?
Your
So if I
senses.
walked in and I didn't know nothing, what are the
So
first
the
things
I'd
I'd
say
see?
the
What would I smell?
The first thing is you'd smell is unsi.
unsi, definitely.
Which is
It's like a
It's like incense essentially, but like it's not like the stick. It's like
sugar-based.
It's sugar based. Yeah, like it's like the Arabs. They have is it bahur?
yeah.
The Arabs have. So it's like
It's a bit
it's like an
oody.
oud. You put it on coal and it burns and creates like a smoke
And then
and
the smoke is very like scented.
it's very scented. Like it's a smell that will stick to your clothes, stick to your house. Like that would be definitely the first thing you would smell.
what's next? What would I see?
You'll
What would
hear
I hear?
music. Music.
So what type of music?
It's usually separated as well. So like men will be on one side, women will be on another side
Of the same room?
No, like
Or of the house?
of the house essentially.
Okay.
You'll-
So what kind of music would I hear?
Definitely Somali music.
Somali music.
Old
Name me a
school as
name me a
well.
couple. Do you know,
You'll
is
hear
that
English music as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
There'll be a mix.
There'll be a mixture.
There'll be a
Okay,
mix,
okay.
definitely.
Like the walk-in song will probably be a Brian McKnight or something.
Brian McKnight, them man still going. See, love it.
Avon, all of them man.
Uh,
Could be Sam Smith. It could be anyone.
Yeah.
Really.
Literally,
Something that the
it's like
younger
Radio
generation,
1's
yeah.
on, and then also someone's on YouTube like putting in the Somali music.
Okay, so
So it's
what
a
would
good
so like?
mixture.
What's a popular Somali song right now?
Do you know who I think the biggest singer is? Sultan Serar. isn't
Yeah.
it? So we've got this guy called Sultan Serar, and he is breaking records at the moment. I did an interview with him on Nomad, which I was really excited about because he's like one of the biggest singers at the moment. He is changing the music scene in the Somali culture. The Somali culture usually had the music scene as something very private, very, very small. Only Somalis came. It was done in like small little venues, things like that. It would be no more than say about 300-400 people. Now we're filling in stadiums. He went to Minnesota. He did one here at the Troxy, filled out and sold out at the Troxy here in London. And then he's done a show in Minnesota, which has a very big Somali community, and they sold out tickets there. And we're looking at a stadium full in Minnesota. So his perspective is, and he speaks only Somali, by the way. So he's from Somalia, he lives in Somalia, speaks only Somali, and his music is beautifully playing to everyone all across the world. His songs are also being learned by non-Somalis as well, because some of them are really catchy and easy to use. They're very meaningful. But when I say there's a change, I mean the change is simply the fact that we're now looking at renting stadiums rather than halls, your local
We're
halls.
thinking big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have to leave his name. He didn't have to leave his language. He's still very much a Somali singer.
You know what? Just a question then. I think just adding to what Steve was saying. So like with the look, I've just been. I don't know. It just keeps on coming back to me. So you said that you can trace your land. I think that's powerful, to be honest. So do you actually? So would you have something hung up to show your trace of, or is just that just simply just?
You learn it when I learnt mine when I was 7. So initially, my dad wrote it all out. Because obviously he's the one to teach me, it's his paternal line. So he wrote it all out on a piece of paper and he stuck it on my bedroom door. So every time I went to bed, I had to recite it once and then I could go to bed. And then gradually, over time, it just sticks in your mind.
Yeah.
Hold on a
That's
second.
how
So
I
the
learned.
names that you were just citing a little while ago and you was going
That's
through.
all my paternal family.
And how much longer did it go on?
I don't know all of it. Ali. So
Yeah,
there's
she can go that
16 in total. So that's, say, 3 per century. 3 generations per century.
Yeah.
So that's going to be 500 years.
500 years.
Yeah, and that's all that's from what I can remember. There's way more to it.
And you had to recite every night.
I had to recite every night, yeah.
A lot of children
Yeah,
don't
no,
even
I
get
I just learned
the
it.
names.
Just
Yeah,
learn-
you just
Yeah,
learn
just
it by
learn
what
it,
sound,
yeah.
isn't it?
But I only know 6, so.
Also,
Smart enough,
although
I
it's
should
the man's lineage and his names, most females will learn their husbands in order to teach in case the man dies
Yeah.
or is ill or anything like that. So most females, once they marry, they will learn the man's so that they then teach
Do
the
the
offspring. So then
continuity.
that continues.
So my dad passed away when I was 13, but I have a younger sister. So my mum taught her my dad's Abdul.
Yeah.
So she knows it,
Yeah.
but then it wasn't taught to her by my dad. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's amazing.
I feel like,
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, that's why it hurts when we have youngsters that aren't learning the language.
It really does.
I know the language, man. Chill. I know the
There's a whole different set of circumstances if you're having your wedding in Somalia or Somaliland, and if you're having it here, it's a whole different
tell us the
vibe. It's a
differences.
whole
Wait,
different
wait, let's-
vibe.
You cover one, I'll cover the other.
Oh my god, do you know what? Because I was just going to make the distinction that if it was happening in Somalia, they would literally bring down a camel
would
or an
slaughter,
animal, they'll slaughter it in front of you.
camel.
Yeah. It's depends what your family's willing to pay for.
Camel.
I mean, if
Camels are not cheap, you know.
they're
That's what I'm
not,
thinking.
yeah.
Like the big camel.
But imagine,
wealth.
yeah.
Yeah. And when a guy goes to ask for the girl's hand, a lot of the time they would need to demonstrate that they have camels, and they would
Exactly.
say things like, even in songs and stuff, they would say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll give you 50 camels for your hand," or And when we're talking about 1,000 to 1,500 a pop for
Yeah.
one camel, and they don't sell the female ones.
Also, so I was looking at a Somali marriage certificate.
Like I'm crazy.
So it's my background.
Wait, can we just
Yeah,
slow
go
that
on.
down as a touch, please? So the man has to give, let's say, 10 camels or something, maybe more.
More,
Yeah.
usually more.
Oh, so how many camels are
would
we
be
looking
a
at?
I mean,
So-
I'm talking my
20
mum.
camels.
So
And it's £1,000 a pop.
yeah.
And he has to,
Imagine because it's
Yeah.
it's part of the mehed as well.
If you went to ask for a girl's hand and you said, "I've got 10 camels," they'll tell you
That's
to go
an
away.
insult. That is an insult to my people.
Yeah, you're
For
cheap.
reals.
but wait. I need to understand this. So he's been working the land.
Yeah.
He's been working the land hard.
Yeah.
And he's only been able to get 10 camels. You're trying to say to me that
It would be impossible for
He
him
needs to
only
aim
have
down
10.
a bit, aim down in terms of social status, which sounds horrible, but it's true. If you're looking for a girl who's worth 10 camels, it's probably a different league to the girl that you're trying to get.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, you understand, right? Yeah, it is what it is.
But also because I do a lot of matrimonial work in my day job, and one of the best things I've ever seen is an original Somali marriage certificate, because it will tell you on the certificate how much was paid for that woman. So on my mum and dad's marriage certificate, which is officially registered, signed off by a judge, I think I've got a picture of it. It's one of the best things that I found in my family. But it says that he paid something like 150 grams of gold for her.
Wow.
And when I went to my mum and I was like, only 150 grams of gold, she was like, there's more. They couldn't fit into the the little slot on the marriage certificate. But that was set without wildlife, without any. Now
150 grams of gold.
It's a lot.
Listen, people kill for that. I don't want to put that on for you, but people,
Yeah.
it is. So that's the equivalent of. So wait. So let me say it down. So he had to bring 150 grams of gold,
that was the starting point.
and he's got to bring camels as
He's
well.
got to bring camels as well.
Livestock, so it's camels
Honestly.
are more sought
But-
after, and obviously they're on the top end. But then you could also do cows, which are obviously going to sustain life for people, and goats and sheep.
It's pretty easy to understand if you think about it. Like, so the whole gold and like camels and stuff like, is mainly showing that like you can provide and that like, and they're rich enough.
It's a dowry, yeah.
Hard enough a worker to like be able to like create a family and like restore the whole generation.
Yeah, absolutely. You got that spot on really quickly.
Being that traditional values as well from like many other.
Listen, we need to gather them up. So
the camels, it's for sustenance.
He comes with his camels, and then they're just going to be used in the family. He's not just given to the wife's family. Is that they're still
his?
No, they're not still his. They're given to the wife's family because don't forget everyone has their own way of taking care of their own thingy. So they're given to the wife's family, but obviously that's not to say we're not going to feed you now. Do you know what I mean? You're very much still the same family. You're just sort of like a family tree. You're just another branch. Now his name is in that sort of family tree now. So then it would be a case of, okay, he's brought that many. Let's just say her brothers have all got their own and their dad has. And then now you're saying, okay, this family now has 300,000 camels because you're all under one family.
I understand that. See? That I can understand. I can understand that. That makes sense to me. Yeah. But I just think...
That's something that when he brings, he's essentially bringing for her hand to the family, not her personally.
Yeah.
She's not going to render it herself.
So in a way that sort of makes sense for that nomad time because it's probably survival. You have to, so you need the camels and things.
So let's just say you're down to your last 10 camels and there's a drought going on and you're struggling and you've got maybe one son, and it's just you and your one son that has to then sustain these camels and keep them moving. It's difficult, and that's why things like having a lot of children would be helpful, because then you'd have all these children that are all taking part from a very young age. Life has changed. Yeah. People are looking at careers. It's not a stay-at-home wife anymore.
Exactly.
So we're sort of having to move along with that time where the man back home, it'd be the man's the breadwinner, the woman stays home. She's able to then take care of all these children.
And both people's happy with that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
There are big differences in the roles, but everybody's happy with that. And women have a huge right in Islam as well. Huge, that she will never be wanting or needing for things.
Yeah.
But also, what we have to consider as well is that Islamically, men are allowed to have 4 wives. That is more so not...
Even over here?
No. It's not really the case here. Not like so an Islamic marriage... And
you can do it.
It's different. An Islamic marriage and like a UK legal marriage are not the same thing. So I can be Islamically married, but not UK legally married. Do you get it?
It's when you try and marry someone like twice or more that you get like a bigamy offence.
Yeah.
Yep. Is it so that?
But then don't forget, I always find it annoying when people mention the fact that Islamically men can have 4 wives, but then people forget to mention that there are actual reasons set out. Like this is not an easy task. This isn't like, oh, she's pretty, let me have her. Oh, she's even better, let me have her. There are huge implications to the male as to what he's supposed to take care of, as to what he's supposed to offer. I mean, essentially, you're going to have, let's just say, 2 families with children growing up and a household to feed, because Islamically the male is responsible for her upbringing and her children, her upkeep and her children. So if you're going to pay rent, food, transport, days out, all of this, and that's your responsibility, your sole responsibility, because what she earns has nothing to do with you. What she earns stays in her pocket until she's willing to use it with whoever, right? She doesn't have to contribute to the household. So when people mention the fact that we can have 4 wives, people always forget to mention there are massive reasons.
And also...
What would be the reason then? So what would be the reason for that?
If you're, for instance, you've got a wife, first of all, you've got to always tell the first wife. So there is no secret business going on, yeah? So that's one of the main things. And so some of the reasons would be if your first wife is unable to have children, because ideally you're supposed to try and procreate. That's what humans are made for. If you're not procreating, you're sort of stubbing your name right there, right? So that would be one of them. If she's very ill and you need the support, let's just say you've got kids, but she's very sick and you need that support, you need another female in the house or around the children or whatnot. So there are many, many reasons set out, but these aren't just because she's pretty and she's taller and she's got big lips. Do you know what I mean?
And also saying that as well, like as I was saying, it's like it's not really a thing now for Muslim men to have, especially in this country, to have 4 wives. But in terms, it is. And also in Islam, if you have more than one wife, you have to treat them equally. Yeah. You can't have a favorite and treat that family better than you treat that. Like, if you're gonna have more than one family, the rule is there has to be equality. You have to treat one the same as the other.
They don't just all stay together. I'm not even. So you have to have a separate home for each. And then
Yeah.
Every wife
And you have to
has her
sustain.
own rights.
And you have to, and you have to,
She has her own set of gold, her own set of balls, her own house. And don't forget, these are things that you're meant to provide.
Yeah.
So to think I'm going to live here in the UK and I can provide 2 houses, 2 lots of gold, because whatever you do for her, you've got to do for the other. That's what she meant, the equality.
And do you know you said that, let's say, when you actually want to go for someone's hand, you bring gold and like 10, they got to bring gold and 10 camels, Steve. You missed it. You missed it, Steve. No, 10 camels is a lie. No, sorry. You got to bring 20 camels.
No,
each
bro.
camel.
You know what? We're looking into the hundreds. You know?
We're talking
looking between 50 and 100.
We're talking herds.
Yeah.
We're talking
Oh,
Yeah.
per car.
If the female is a prestige, comes from like a well-off family, you know, it depends where you're sort of looking at your level of female, right? So if you're looking at 10 camel female, there's a price that goes with that, innit? Like you pay for. You
got to hit the roads, as they say.
Yeah,
You gotta hit the roads.
you're not going to get much return on that investment. Do you know what I mean?
Look, so 2 questions. So, what would the courting, you know what I mean when I say courting? Yeah, like what would the courting period look like? Let's say back in Somalia, and then when you compare it with the courting period of now, like in the UK, what would you say is like the difference, or what's the courting period of back in Somalia? And, for now, would you say in your community?
Do you feel like this is more religious or more cultural? Because I've always understood like the whole courting period and the rules around that are like very, very like religiously mandated about what you can and can't do, about how about how you approach it.
Well, Somalis are very much, their culture is very much their religion.
Yeah, I was gonna say the religion is a massive influence on the culture itself and the way people move and act. Like, to say it's not the same at all, the courting. Well, like as I think you said earlier, like people date just to date now, just to get a free meal, or just, do you know what I mean? Because they're bored on a Friday night and they want to go out, they're gonna go on a date. Like, that wouldn't happen in Somalia or in Islam in general.
Okay, so let me ask then.
It's frowned upon certain cultures and religions.
So let's take it back to Somalia then, yeah. So what would you say is that the courtship period? Would you say it's like a 3 months? Is it from?
If you like her straight away.
Yeah.
I think things have changed quite a lot.
Yeah, it's the
You
straight
see
away
her, you're
thing.
like, oh, she's nice. And you go, oh, she's nice.
Literally.
Then you get married.
I think my
then you get to
parents
each other.
met and then they were married the following week. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like a
But
girl,
then
you
there
go
are
straight to her
others that
dad.
actually go through a really long time of, you know, him working on himself, making sure he's got enough to bring to the family, things like that. So there is different dynamics. I mean, your dad probably had
Yeah. So
everything ready
my dad
for
was
you. He's
older
like,
than
I
my
like
mum.
you. Do you like me? Let's do
Yeah,
this.
exactly. So he was able to, like, he basically said to his family, I want a wife. So then they gave him a list of families to choose a wife from. And then he went to my mum's family and then he asked to have my mum's like hand, and that was it.
And how long was that? Like a few weeks?
About the whole thing was about a week. Yeah.
And he's married within.
And then, married within a week and then had a baby within like 6 months and then moved abroad.
Because you see how, you know, like when you get into a relationship, you have the honeymoon period, it's all nice and sweet. So like with us, it's like get married straight away so you can have the honeymoon period, enjoy it. Do you know what I mean?
But how?
Because
But you don't
after
even
the
know
honeymoon
the
period, it
person.
goes down.
But we don't
So
forget,
it's
there
good
is
to just
no sexual
married and
contact
enjoy
before
it.
marriage.
There's
So
not.
if you're not going to have sexual
more allowed.
contact, why would you be sitting here having the same cup of tea over and over again for 6 months to a year? So I can't touch you, you can't touch me. You know, we can't be alone together. We always have to have another member with us. What are we doing for a year? Like, it's boring.
It'll take me a long time to actually like someone. Do you understand that? Within a week,
But you
and
know
I've
what? Do
declared
you
my
think
love
that's
for you.
because you've been conformed to believe that you need to get to know every aspect of their life? Because I'll tell
Yeah.
you one thing.
But
I don't
this is
think
me.
I
This
don't
is
think
me.
2 people can know each other until they share a house.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can date
100%.
someone for
100%.
As long as you like, you
100%.
will never know them inside out.
But you're right.
Yeah.
But there's key things that you can pick up. So it's like, you know, obviously we talk about this thing of like red flags or whatever. So without that, there's certain things that I can see instantly with people. I'm like, nah, Dave, nah. Yeah, nah. You keep your. I can see that because life experience or whatever. Now, if I just said, "Ooh, she's beautiful, let's marry,"
I don't think it would go like that, because don't forget the example. We're going to use Costa's family. I'm so sorry.
Go
We've been
for
doing
it.
this all day, her
Yes.
mum and dad. So the example she gave you, like, he went to his family and he said, "I'm now at a point in my life where I can take responsibility for a female. I'm ready to get married." What they then did is they started looking around for him. So don't forget, by the time he's met her mum, the family have already checked on this family's name, what they do, what this particular female is like. They've already done her. All the females have probably met her,
Yep.
or the
Already done the
grandparents have
vetting
met
process.
her. Everyone's already vetted her really, really well. So by the time he's met her, it's a case of, do you like her or not? Because everything else works.
Yeah.
Everything else
like a
is
dating
checked.
site, but it's not if you get
Everything
Yeah.
else is
You're not
checked
in.
for
You're
you.
not directly
Yeah.
in the dating site yourself. It's like your mum. Your
Your
mum knows you
sisters,
better
your
than
aunties,
yeah.
everyone gets involved.
Your mum knows you
DBS
better than anybody
background
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
DBS
So by the time
background
her
checks.
dad's actually gone to this female and said, "Hey,
that should
can
really
we
be the
meet?"
right person for you.
He's already like, "Okay, all I need to know is, do I like her? Do I find her attractive? Can we have a conversation?" Within a week, you know that, no?
Exactly.
But everything else has already been ticked off for you. And
Yeah,
I
because
think-
when you think about it, no one knows you better than your mother.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like being raised at home in the house, etc. Because you don't leave the house until you're ready to get married. That's the thing as well. So in terms of actually having all the resources you need and being prepared for that moment, that time has been taken care of. It's like, you know, when you're ready. I'm ready. Let me meet someone, marriage, etc. So the whole the process works itself out, really.
So you know what? So even when you like listen to that, then because before I was always like wondering. I used to wonder, so why would you want to do arranged marriage? But I think when you listen to something like that, I can start seeing a reason why you would. Because it just sounds like it's like friends and family who are really just doing the work for you in terms of finding someone, and all you've really got to do is
Approve or disapprove.
I
Yeah.
think if I'd listened to my mum, the arrangement wasn't a thing in our culture, but if I'd listened to my mum, I would have probably not been married to, probably chose someone different.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Mum always knows best.
I make mum right,
but
Mum always knows best.
Seriously.
the thing is though, even though I'm just going to put this out there and be devil's advocate for a quick second, even though that is the method that we use in Somalia, in Islam, it doesn't mean it's not a flawed method. It doesn't mean it is it's going to work all the time. It doesn't mean it's a perfect method. That's just the method we use, and there's a logic behind it, but it doesn't mean it hasn't got a 100% success rate. Do you know what I mean?
My question:
I can't
Oh,
see
okay.
those
We're going there.
Yeah, because you've got strong women.
if you don't,
You've got strong, opinionated women with your own views, your own feelings, and you're not scared to put that forward, which over here is scary to a lot of guys. Like,
I think this
we can't
whole
afford 100
culture-
camels. I think that's a problem. I'm joking. I'm joking.
We don't have the whole camel thing. We have meher, so it's like money.
Yeah.
So
No, we
women
have
ask-
that anyway. We have
Here as
meher.
well.
Are you crazy?
Like an additional thing.
No, we have meher here.
But even if a
we
guy
don't ask
was-
for camels here, do we?
Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah, my
He
mum.
gives it to your family back home. Are you crazy? Were
Yeah.
you gonna accept one that wasn't gonna give you
I'm just
nothing?
gonna ask for loads of money. I don't know about no camels.
Girl,
So
child.
wait. Can I just ask how much money was we asking
You can
for?
ask like 50k.
Plus for more than that.
That's your
More.
meher, but that's your.
So
That's like average.
That's like the baseline.
Yeah,
though.
that's the
That's
baseline,
like the
yeah.
baseline,
So if
50
he wants to
grand.
marry you, he'll give you. You ask for
Dowry.
how much you want, and when
Yeah.
you're divorcing,
Yeah, your dowry.
he'll have
Yeah.
to give that money too. So if you divorce him, he'll be.
No.
I'm just trying to-
Islamically, he's supposed to give that to you from the day that he's asking
Yeah.
for your hand.
Yeah.
He's not
So
supposed to
you
wait.
can
till-
ask-
So she's gonna say, "I know you're working hard and you've only got sort of £10,000. I'll have the 10,000. I'll go buy myself some gold and we'll get into a house,
10,000.
right?"
Mm,
Now, if she knows her man can make it work, she'll be like 50k to start with,
yeah.
then the gold on top.
But it's also worth noting some people ask for like a glass of water. Do you see what I mean? So there's not a monetary value.
See, feelings ain't got me nowhere in the past.
Yeah,
To be honest with you, feelings have got me ain't got me feelings ain't got me
Money over
no.
love. You aren't easy.
No, I'm not saying over.
They preach your money
No,
over
I'm
love.
not saying money over love, but love can't stand alone. It can't.
And marriage is a business at the end.
It's a business. It's a partnership, no?
Exactly.
So there has to be,
Alright.
and also
the lower the threshold, the more he's just.
If what you're saying, I'm just listening to you, then it must be like 50 grand for the Somali community is just light work then.
No, it isn't like work.
It's also worth noting, like, you do like it's not just your family, like your dad has to go out and work and like save in a bank or whatever. Like, it's a community endeavor. Like, you've got a whole bunch of people backing you to like help bring this money together. Because it's like you're incorporating their family into your family. So it's like a family affair to just get that money together.
So like mum, dad.
Yeah.
So okay, so
the more siblings
uncles,
you have,
aunts.
the easier it is for you to raise those funds because everybody works together.
but you do realise then in today's time, and then as we probably progress on, then that will probably be more difficult as the families shrink
100%.
and they're not earning.
More reason why boys should work harder, no?
For reals.
And also, just to say this as well, obviously, like, it seems like, 1,000 camels, 50 grand, like, it's a lot, right? But it symbolises the seriousness of the commitment. Are you that committed to this woman? Yes or no? If you're fretting about the money, then you don't really care for her as much as you maybe think you do. Do you get what I mean? Because going towards her well-being, her family's well-being, if you see your life with this woman, you're going to be there till the very end. That's how serious you are about the commitment. 50 grand or however much money, how much gold.
Compromise as well, guys.
Obviously,
If you love it and stuff.
It's not all set in stone. That's
But it just symbolises how serious that commitment and that bond is.
But isn't that marrying someone a big commitment, or?
Oh, it is a big, but it's the symbol of it. That's what it is. It doesn't determine the commitment, but it just symbolises it.
I feel like Western marriages, and I'm really sorry if I offend anyone, but like they are very much like you and the other individual, and that's it. Somali marriages, it's you and your community and your family and their family, and all of these people have a vested interest in this union, which is why they like add money to it, why like they kind of almost like gatekeep it as well. Exactly. So you have people after you get married asking you about your marriage, asking you about your husband, because it is like a community venture almost.
If you're going to have marital problems as well, the same way that they all came together to make that union, people will be there to get involved to help you sort the problems. So if there are issues going on within the household, obviously the first point of contact is to deal with it with your partner, right? Because it's supposed to stay private. But then if you find that these things are becoming a little bit too much for you to deal with alone, you'd first approach her family, her mum and dad, and she'd approach yours. And then they'd come together and they'd be trying to find solutions, what is going on. And it could be something really small, it could be a massive thing, but then they'd start working on what here is going on, you know, and how can we all support each other to make sure that this family doesn't. Somalia, they found caves with drawings that sort of go really far back. And we're talking pharaohs and those times back.
And no, I fully believe you. I can't stress this. Ethiopia is like some weird stuff's going on there religiously, like historically, and people have tried to hide it. Because if you go there, like you will find some of like the oldest Christians, you'll find some of like the oldest Bibles, you'll find like some of the oldest Qurans, and then you've also just got like a group of actual Jewish people.
That we have. So.
Do you know one thing I wanted to go back to? You were saying East Africa, Kenya, Eritrea. So we're not going to go into the geography of it, but there are a lot of cultures that they have, that they do, practices that they practice that we also practice. And one that I've noticed is hitting the mainstream now. There's a few, so the bati, the dresses.
Oh yeah.
That went a bit viral on TikTok. I don't know if you guys have seen. So we have this particular dress that we wear at home. It's like a polyester material, very basically cut.
It's like almost like a.
It's literally a box cut. Yeah. Very comfy.
Very basic, but it's extremely comfortable.
What's it called? Can you say?
Bati, Baati.
No one calls it that though.
Yeah, the other we call it that.
Dirashid, yeah.
Dirac, and then Sheed, Shaid.
That's how it looks, guys.
So it's very basic material, really simple to wear.
Okay.
And that's culturally what we wear at home.
Yeah.
And it's something you would, in a normal household where there's females, you would see her wearing that, and then she'd have her hair up with some sort of hair mask in it, and it's probably a daily thing that they do when they're cooking and cleaning. They've got the hair mask in their hair, they've got something on their face that Vasily we talked about earlier, and they're cooking and cleaning, and the aromas are there. So that's very much cultural. But now I've noticed that that's actually traveling here into this Western society. A lot of people are looking for those dresses or wearing those dresses, And I think that's because we're integrating more.
Yeah.
I know friends of mine when I was young would be like, what is that feeling that you wear? Can I have one? And then as soon as I get some from someone comes from Africa, I'd be like, here's yours, and they'd wear it, and you know.
Honestly, one of my favourite memories was I had a birthday party for my 16th birthday, which is not something that most Somali mothers would allow. But I went to a mixed school, all the boys and girls came, and my friend George, as his pajamas, wore my mum's like Dedat sheet. And it's this guy walking around my house like wearing a Dedat sheet, bright pink, and it's just a really interesting like memory. But ever since then, I've noticed that he's been wearing like more loose-fitting clothes.
Honestly,
That influenced him. Right? So there's the male version of that. There's like a sarong thing that males wear.
like a skirt.
It's like a skirt.
Yeah.
It's a basic box
Mawis.
part, and then they sort of roll it themselves. It's called mawis. I'll write it down for you later on. But I've noticed those things are all hitting because it's like close to the kilt.
Yeah.
It's like a longer version of the kilt.
Yeah.
But a much softer material. But then we've got a lot of things like that on the runway. I've noticed the latest runway that Balenciaga did had a lot of things that resemble our cultural clothes. And I
A
was
lot
just
of
looking at it
appropriation.
Like, no.
And they're selling it for
I
like $2,000.
recognise that, it's just a different material.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
You'll see like old
Okay.
Somali men
That's
wearing the
it.
same
Yeah.
style as
Yeah.
well.
So okay, so that was actually one of the questions I actually wanted to ask. Like, what influences you think the Somali culture has had on London, present London right now? Like, what's something you mentioned with
I
the
think
clothes?
one of the biggest other clothing garments is we wear this thing called guntino, which is essentially a dress that's tied up on one side. It's a one-shouldered dress. And that one-shouldered dress is in every shop you can think of now. Only difference is probably slight differences in the material. But these one-shouldered dresses are things that we've been wearing. I'll write it down for you. These are things that we've been wearing for years upon years upon years. And now a one-shouldered dress is the it thing to wear.
So what do you think has caused this influence? Because we've got a little more time, so 15 minutes. Yeah. So what do you think is causing the influence? Because initially, so this is my. I don't know if you read the blurb of like the event, but I was thinking it initially started with. I don't know what to say. So I honestly thought it started with like. So you see, like with urban London, and that's 11 minutes without that's money. Which is part of that, yeah. And then now you see that because of, let's say, UK rap or whatever, some of the terminologies, well, as I said, I think you talked about before, but everywhere I go, I always say that. You don't say wallahi all the time, man.
Yeah.
Every minute,
And it's using a lot of
wallahi.
drill songs as well.
Huh?
And it's using a lot of drills, so you hear a lot of Muslim words featuring little drill songs now as well.
And then I was just thinking, that was just like with Jamaicans, because before everything was like,
Everyone's patois, yeah.
I was like, wow, go on, what? I was like, yeah, Jamaican, what?
Yeah.
But, and then sometimes I think that, because it's been popularised in music, that it starts becoming part
Integrated.
of, yeah, like the wider London culture. What do you think, or is it?
I think that's happening a lot, and I think it's happening a lot more so because now we have music that both younger Somali boys and girls are doing, and it's sort of like the drill, which is the it thing, and because everybody looks up to that drill style lifestyle. I think it's becoming more and more known. Things like wallahi, hoyo, unto, which is food, but then they can use it in a way where it's not. Sorry.
Bismillah as well.
Yeah, bismillah. So there's a whole load of stuff that are hitting the naya. Naya is like a derogatory way of
It's like, hey,
calling a
girl.
female.
Yeah.
What does
You
that
know?
mean?
Like,
It's like
Girl,
boy, but
girl,
like feminine
girl,
way of saying
yeah.
it. So there's
Yeah.
Naya,
It's a bit
there's
rude.
Wadia, which is the male one.
Naya, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's waria, which is the
Everyone
male
knows
version
waria.
of saying oi boy or hey man or something like that. But in a not so positive light, if you know what I mean.
Do you know what, like, whenever I think about because I think about this topic, like, so much, it's, like, a bit of an obsession of mine, like, what is it that Somalis have brought to the UK? When did they bring it kind of thing? And people, like, forget that the Somalis have been here since, like, the 1800s. We were, like, there's been a...
Seamen.
Yeah, exactly, the Lascars. There's been an existing continuous Somali community in Cardiff for nearly 200 years. The last man to be hung in the UK was a Somali man. Yeah.
Of course it was.
Do you know?
Hormones of badness, do you know what I mean? Of course it was.
Do you know what I mean? And then for me as well, because I'm going to drop this as well, but I work in law. Somalis have absolutely, like, when I tell you that we came at immigration law in this country like with a sledgehammer, we've completely made immigration law in this country and asylum law. So every time someone tries to claim asylum from like Syria, Afghanistan, they're referring to cases like our parents did. And that's what I think the Somali contribution is. It's that we've made the country more open. And people don't really think about that, the work that had to be like, particularly like my firm of solicitors, because we're in Tottenham, like the entire firm, they say this every day, was built off of the back of Somali cases, Somali country guidance cases. And had it not been for those people bringing their cases all the way to the House of Lords, all of that sort of stuff, loads of people would not have a right to asylum in this country.
So to the rest of the world, we took frankincense and stuff.
Yeah.
And to England.
When my mum goes, the language is gone from my family. I mean, I know bits, I can understand it, and I know bits, and mostly bad words, and some good ones, but it's gone, and it's so important.
Do you know what, for me,
So
it was like when I was younger, I used to love genealogy. I used to love the idea that people like could trace back their ancestors and they could find their history. And like, it really upset me that the only record of my family is like this generation kind of thing. I'm the only one who's able to be found in like the Kew National Archives. Maybe my mum or my dad, but I'm not going to be able to go. That's not my history. It's not my archives. But like in my mind, I do have my archives.
Do you know what I just noticed when I was thinking about it? I don't want to be too long. Because like, when you actually listen to it, it seems like the culture really is about it. Really is, the family is really important. I think you are just part of the family, if that makes sense. You're just you just seem like you're just contributing
Part
to
of
the
the
family.
unit.
Do you understand? But yeah, that's what it is, and it's like it's all for the bigger purpose of that unit. And I think that's what gets lost when we come over these UK or whatever. We list that we list.
But how powerful is that if you can go back that far? I mean, where me and my mum had an argument over the language of her not passing it on to the younger ones when I told her to when they were born, and they can't do it now. But she's actually doing a family tree and started going back home to dig stuff up so that when she goes, at least we've got some sort of. I mean, she's gone back quite a way, but we had a big argument because I was so passionate about her passing that language on because I didn't know it. We had an argument. She's like, I'm going to do a family tree then and get you some history. So I think it's so important. So important.
I think for all of us that aren't, even if we're born here, that aren't the original people of this land, I think we should all endeavour to take our children back home. I think we should ideally try and incorporate some of our cultures, whether it's just simply like an essence, like incense burning in the house, or a particular meal, or whatever it is. I think we should all try and keep something with us, because the less we keep with us, the less will stay. And so we're going to have this whole nation of people who essentially don't know who they are.
Our ancestors guide us. They guide us, and we've had that knowledge of self.
I think there was, I don't know who said it, there was a quote that I heard once, and it said, to know where you're going, you need to know where you are from. And I think the easier we take this, and the more likelihood that if our children don't know where they're from, then they have no idea where they're going.
I just wanted to add though, because like Somalis get a really bad rap in this country because we're asylum seekers and refugees. By nature, we had to like, people always remind me like, oh, your parents came here because of a war kind of thing. And it's like, you ignore the fact that for centuries before that, in the face of extreme colonization, in the face of slavery, we did not buckle, we did not lose our culture, we did not lose our religion. And that's something that I absolutely, like, the resilience of the Somali people is second to none. Yeah.
And we didn't only come here because of that, like you rightly mentioned earlier, we've been here for 200 years plus.
Yeah.
Last man, hundreds of Somali, mad. All right, I think that's a good place to stop here.
Thank you.
You know, yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
I feel like we just got
This has been really interesting.
I really enjoyed it.
It's been fantastic.